Everyone, thanks for joining this month's ABW Café. We are very excited to welcome Stijn Kuijpers from Cmotions, who will be sharing some information about the work that they did with Médecins Sans Frontières. This meeting is being recorded and will be shared after with all participants. So we'll hand it over to Stijn now, and at the end we'll have some opportunities for questions as well. So go ahead, take it over. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Kate, and welcome everybody. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see if it works. It does. Great to have you all here. Locally, it's Wednesday, 5 o'clock, so it might be that you guys are either hungry, thirsty, tired, or overheated. Hopefully, you'll manage to hang on in this hour, and I will try to make it as interesting and interactive as possible. So please, if you have any questions, raise your hand or just break in. I don't mind, to make sure that it's as relevant as possible for you as a participant. All right, let's first introduce myself and the company I work for. I work for Cmotions. We are a data consultancy firm. We are founded in 2002, which is already 22 years from now. And we are a full service firm, which means that we can help organizations from data strategy to data engineering and from advanced analytics to AI and everything that is needed to generate as much value from data as possible. We do that, of course, with projects, but we can also support organizations with training and specific solutions. And we are here because we are a very proud partner of Analytics for a Better World and the stuff that ABW does for non-profit organizations. And we are really happy to help making impact for the world. Myself, as a consultant within Cmotions, I try to connect business strategy, IT architecture, and BI and AI use cases in a holistic way. So I'm building bridges, and I try to connect all the expertise that you need on those areas to get the most value out of data. And I'm also doing that for a lot of non-profit organizations in the Netherlands, but also internationally. And one of my projects is a project that I've done with Médecins Sans Frontières, which is an international project, and I would like to share my learnings on what we did in this project and what we have learned there. At the end, there will be an opportunity to ask questions and also maybe discuss your specific challenges or situations. So I try to keep it short to make the most out of that interactive part. First, I would like to start introducing the term of data strategy, what it is, why is it important, and what components there are to build your own data strategy. And then we go to the specific case for MSF, how we approached it, what the learnings were, and how they proceed from the project that we did there. So I'm sure we can use the time to go through these subjects. So let's first do an introduction on data strategy, because there are a lot of definitions of what is a data strategy, what could be in my data strategy. Is it a document? Is it a one-pager? Is it a 200-page booklet? So what is a data strategy? And if I go through the definition in a total, it is a plan, a comprehensive plan, which means it is understandable, but also with a good and wide scope that outlines how an organization collects, manages, analyzes, and uses data to achieve its business goals. And the last part is really important. So a data strategy must be aligned with your business strategy and the objectives or the goals that you have defined for your organization or your business unit or your team. So it has to have a good connection. And it serves as a roadmap, as a document, as a guidance to make the best decisions, how to go forward, and using data to improve your business operations and gaining an advantage compared to other organizations or your competitors. So that's a nice broad definition of what data strategy could be. And there are several reasons why it's a good idea to have a data strategy. The first one is for your internal communication, but also towards your external stakeholders. So it's a way to explain and inspire your stakeholders what the potential value of data could be, and how it links to your organizational objectives. So it's a way of communicating the value of data. It's also a way to focus your data initiatives and your data projects. So it's a vehicle or an instrument to choose those data initiatives that really contribute to your business objectives. The more it helps you align your data projects with your business objectives, the more impact these data initiatives make. And also the easier it is to get budget and resources and that kind of stuff for your data projects. So it helps you focus. It also helps you align. So it helps you align different projects, different activities, but also different strategic documents like your overall organizational mission and vision with your data strategy. And it helps you align all those different projects that are running. And last but not least, if you write down what you really want to do with data and what is necessary to have in place to get the most out of your data, it also helps to get commitment of all levels in your organization, for instance, for budget or for time or other resources. It's not evident that everyone in your organization understands that it takes time, that it takes money, that it takes blood, sweat, or tears to improve your data initiatives. And your data strategy as a document can help get that clarity and also get that commitment from the rest of your organization. So a lot of reasons to start thinking about, do I have a data strategy? Does it check all these 4 boxes? Because a data strategy really helps everyone to stay on the same page in terms of what do we want to do with data, what do we need to do to get there, and how are we going to organize that. If you then take a look at what should be in such a data strategy document, we have several building blocks. We have the why, the how, and the what. So let's take a look at those building blocks. The why tells you more in the data strategy, tells you more about inspiration and information for the reader of your data strategy document in why is data valuable for us as an organization. So it's about the potential value of data, it's about the potential value of analytics or AI or BI or any data application and how it's valuable for the organization. So it's an inspirational document. It's really important that your data strategy makes people enthusiastic about data. And it's important that it connects with your organizational mission objectives, but also the value of your organization. So a data strategy and the choices that you make in your data strategy need to align with the value of your values of your organization. And finally, it describes a vision, a future image of the state of the organization when it is using data in a proper way. So it's a dreamy document that says in the future data might help us doing this, or data will help us doing that. And that's the inspirational part. So the why is really important to start your data strategy document. Then you go to the how. So how will data actually help creating this value? So those are the use cases, the examples, and I will come with a lot of examples in the use case for MSF. So how could data work in our daily practice for us, and how will it create value in a day-to-day practice. It's also good to make the connection on a more detailed level with teams or business units or domains. So how will advanced analytics help the acquisition of new donors? How will AI help in predicting the churn of our existing donors? How will it help in finding new volunteers? So a lot of use cases should be connected with the purpose of the team or a business unit or a domain within your organization. And then you go into where are we now and what is the desired state of the organization in terms of data maturity. So where do we want to go and what is the gap between the current situation and the desired state? I will go into that more deeply in the use case. Because based on that fit gap analysis, you can make decisions on what you would like to improve. And you do that from a holistic point of view. So not only invest in technology, but also in the skills and the capacity of your people, your organizational changes maybe, or changing the way you work together. So it should be a holistic improvement of your organization. And finally, the what, the solutions. So we start with the why and the how, and finally the what in, okay, what are we actually going to do? So you define solutions on all those 4 aspects of the holistic view that I just mentioned. So that means that you can define training programs for your people in the organization, or you invest in specific software or hardware to improve certain things in your IT landscape. It can be that you have to change the way you organize yourselves to create more multidisciplinary teams. So you define the solutions that you think you need to close the gap. And those solutions will also come in the use case for MSF. Then you translate the solutions into projects or activities. So define a project with deliverables and a planning to say, okay, we're going to do a selection for a new CRM system, or we're going to implement a data warehouse, and put those projects on a planning. And don't forget owners, budgets, and interdependencies between projects to make sure that it's all realistic. That is part of the what. And don't forget that you can work on specific use cases while you're also working on improving the organization or improving your IT. So it's not that you have to spend 2 or 3 years in improving a data warehouse or implementing a system before you can generate value with these use cases. Try to make it parallel. So that's, in my opinion, the building blocks for a good data strategy. You define the why in defining a vision for the future and connect with your organizational objectives. To define the how, to make the fit gap analysis between now and the future, and find solutions that you plan in a roadmap. And this exactly is what we did with MSF. Feel free to ask any question also in between these parts of the program. So try to make it as interactive as possible.
I already have a question. Am I allowed, Stijn?
Yes, of course, Dick.
Yeah. So in fact, how important is it that already in, let's say, setting up the data strategy, that you already have a clear view on the return on investment, the return on data investment?
Of course, it's important for big investments, because otherwise you won't get your budget to invest in, for instance, new capacity. If you would like to have an additional FTE in your data team, or you would like to invest in a new data warehouse, those are big investments, and then it's important to have some kind of business case for your ROI. But most part of your data strategy is about belief that changing the way of working and making better informed decisions based on data and insights will eventually make your whole organization better. And that's not an easy business case to do in terms of creating Excel and revenues versus cost. It's also a belief and a vision. And building a data strategy is starting with that belief, and see if this belief is shared within with your stakeholders in the organization.
I see.
But there are parts of the roadmap and of the projects that really need a business case, because the investments are too big just to base it on belief only.
Thanks.
It's a bit of a hybrid. It's not a black and white answer, but I think it's a mix.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right, let's go to the MSF project. So, MSF, Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières, Artsen zonder Grenzen. It's an international organization you probably all know. And they came to me via MSF Amsterdam, because we did a project in the Netherlands first. And they came to me from the international community of fundraising analysts within MSF. So there are sections of MSF all over the world, and they operate independently in terms of fundraising and fundraising analysis, but they also have an international community in which they share knowledge and experience and work together as an international community. And there is a very good collaboration between those analysts, and they share a lot of knowledge, but they all shared one common challenge, and that is that they all struggled with the internal narrative and the structure to actually take the next step in their data maturity. So they are doing a lot of good things in separate projects and on specific fundraising campaigns, and they do what they can, but it was really hard to take the next step. So they asked me to help them define a framework and also a common language to help each other actually take this next step in their data maturity. So they asked me, could you do a series of digital workshops? We're talking about the end of 2021, beginning of 2022, so the end of the COVID period. So it was fully digital, of course, because it's an international community. And we started to create a data strategy and a data roadmap for all these different fundraising teams across the globe, which for me was, of course, an incredible honor to do this project with all those kinds of people with different backgrounds and different cultures. So the objectives that we defined for the workshop were the following. We would like to create a common language on what it means to be data-driven and what it takes to get there. So everyone has their own ideas, but it's important that you can share your knowledge and also communicate it with your peers based on a common language. So what is it to be data-driven? What do we want to be? What is necessary to get there? So common language first. The second one was that we would like to have an objective way to clarify where each team is right now and what their ambition is for the future, both in maturity level. So how mature would you like to be on data? We can't all be Netflix or Google in terms of data and AI. So the ambition level can be different between teams and between organizations, and also the speed in where you think you would like to get there. So some teams would like to go to the next level in 1 year, and other teams would like to spend a bit more time because they know they don't have the capacity or the commitment to be faster. So the state and the ambition per team. Then they would like help, but also discuss as a group what are typical actions that we can come up with to bridge the gap between where you are right now and what your ambition is. So what are typical improvement initiatives to get your data maturity and your data use cases to the next level? So what are the actions to bridge the gap? And because we are doing this for different teams across the globe, we also have a way, based on this common language, to benchmark the teams, so you can provide tools for knowledge sharing and collaboration. For instance, if Finland would like to implement a data warehouse, and you know that both Argentina, Taiwan, and South Africa just implemented it, you can see that from the benchmark, so you can learn from each other instead of trying to do everything yourselves individually. So it's a good way to benchmark and help and share knowledge based on this this workshop cycle. So what did we do? We created a program based on 4 parts. The first part is create a vision and ambition to be data-driven. So that's the why. Why do we want to do this? What is the potential value for fundraising? How does it connect with the overall ambition of MSF? So that's the top of the pyramid that I just showed you. The second part of the workshop program is what are you missing? So where are you right now? The reality check. And what are you missing to really get where you want to be? So that's part 2. The third part was what are the actions that you think that you need to bridge the gap? So we looked at different expertise areas like data management, like data visualization, data science, but also organizational structures. So what are solutions that you need to make the next step, to fill in what you are missing? And the final part is putting it in a roadmap with a realistic planning and good ownership. So normally this is a program that we do with fundraising teams or management teams or C-level representatives in interactive workshops on site. But we have 20 different sections of MSF with all their specific situations. So we had to do some kind of pressure cooker approach. So what we did is we created a blended learning program in which each part of the workshop, so for each of the 4 parts, we first created a lot of content in a digital learning portal that the participants could read and also do a lot of self-assessment and questionnaires within the learning portal to get the right information they need to answer the questions above, and also prepare the digital workshop meetings that followed. This preparation could be done within the local teams. So you can imagine that this is done with the fundraising analyst and maybe a project manager or the fundraising manager or a database marketeer or a fundraising specialist. So that can be done in a team within the section itself, because it's an online portal that can be used by all people within MSF. And then we follow that up with digital meetings. So we discussed that as a group, and we could fine-tune the results for all the different sections based on this interaction. This made it possible to do this for a lot of teams in parallel with their own results for their own section. So they each got their own data strategy result, but also in doing it together, you create this common language that you need for the future as well. So we started with 5 sections, and we did a rollout for 19 sections in 4 different groups. And as you can see, we had to take into account time zones and language, but also data maturity. So we created different groups that matched on those criteria, and did a program with all these different teams, which of course was really cool to do. All right, what were the results? So what we did was we created results for each section individually. So they did the maturity scan in the portal. They answered a lot of questions and they read a lot of material on data maturity. They created their own one-pager as a data strategy document that they could share internally with their stakeholders as a first version of their data strategy document. And they created their own individual roadmap for the future with all the different projects. And because we did that for 24 sections in total, we had a lot of information that could be reused as a common language, because all the materials that they use can be reused in the future. We created the benchmark so you could compare and learn from each other. And we have a lot of potential projects that they can collaborate on. So let's take a look at these specific results. So for each section, we created 2 pages, just 2. So not 40 pages and not a lot of information in the document, just 2 one-pagers. The front page is a document with the vision, the role of data, potential use cases, the data maturity and ambition. So you can see where you are right now, where you want to go, and what you should do to improve that. So this is a one-pager data strategy with the pyramid I just informed you about. On the back of this one-pager, there's the roadmap. So split into 4 different aspects. So on people, on organization, on process, and on technology, you have projects and activities that are planned on a quarterly basis or on a yearly basis. So on the front, it's the why, and on the back, it's the what already plotted into a planning. So imagine what value this generates for MSF as a community, as a whole, if we have 24 versions of this one-pager and also 24 versions of this roadmap. You can do a lot of cool things in terms of collaboration and knowledge sharing if we know what everyone is going to do within this structure. So for the community, it meant that we could benchmark on all different topics the different teams. So on the left, you can see that the UK, the Spain, and the Belgian and the Japanese team are quite ahead compared to the other teams on data management and data governance. So if Poland or Greece would like to learn how they approach certain things, they can see in this list, oh, I should call my colleague in Barcelona because they are way ahead in data governance processes, for instance. So it helps finding the right person within the community to to share their experience and knowledge instead of that you have to do it all yourselves. And on these topics, we created a dictionary that contained different terminology within this topic. It contained the description of the different maturity stages and also possible improvement initiatives that you could think of to put in your roadmap. So it also created a really good knowledge dictionary that people could review and reuse to improve their local data strategy and their local roadmap. So it's a win-win, both locally but also for the international community as a whole. And because we had all these roadmaps, we could also do an analysis of what type of projects and what type of activities are common in all those different roadmaps. So we can see how you could work together or collaborate. So within the community, we did also some voting sessions on where do you see potential value for collaboration within the international community of fundraising analysts and fundraising in general. So those were the results. So let's go a bit deeper into the learnings. So what came out of these results? So first, the why. most of the MSF teams put high regard on donor centricity, personalization, creating long-lasting relationships with their donors. So getting data and analytics and applying analytics to reach those objectives is really important. I understand that in a lot of non-profit organizations, there's also the projects or the scientific research or the helping patients or other stakeholders of the organization. That is a really important objective, but it wasn't the focus of this data strategy project. So we focused on the role of data for fundraising specifically. Other learnings were that using data to optimize processes and optimize decision making within fundraising. For instance, the process of creating new year plans and allocating fundraising budget to donor segments or to channels is also a common part of the why for all these MSF teams. So effective usage of resources, of channels, of teams is an important reason why data could be able to help MSF in that. But they also said we want to start with fundraising, but we also want to go beyond fundraising and see how we can use data and analytics for other parts of our organization as well. And finally, better decision making, better strategic planning, but also analysis, evaluation, and adjustment of campaigns or donor journeys is an important objective for which data could be of value. And finally, automation of data processes and not only look back but also stay ahead is something that we saw in a lot of vision statements from the different MSF teams. So this can be inspirational for your own data strategy. If you'd like to think why could data be important, these terms could be helpful for you guys as well. Then the how, and I'll start with the use cases. What are typical use cases that were on the roadmaps of the MSF teams? So first, it's about your donors and your donor groups. So it's donor profiling, donor segmentation, donor lifetime value. So not only looking back, but also predicting the value in the future of your donors, not only for single donors or structural donors, but also for instance, legacy and inheritance, or major donors or corporate partners. So different donor segments and their lifetime value, but also scoring leads who are not donor yet, but might be in the future. So lead scoring and predicting the lifetime value of leads is also an important use case that we saw in the MSF documents. Then analysis. So analysis of attrition, so churn, for instance, per donor segment, per campaign, per channel, but also per payment method. So see if there are differences in attrition rate for all these all these dimensions. Attribution, channel attribution. So if I do an online advertising campaign or a TV campaign, can I see how it attributes to new donors or donor lifetime value? And also the prediction of churn or attrition to make sure that you can stay ahead and try to do some loyalty activities to prevent churn. On the top right, we have use cases that are on BI or dashboarding, like KPI dashboards, not only for the fundraising management team, but also for tactical or operational levels. So for instance, on campaign level or channel or specific donor segmentation. So integrated KPI dashboards, and campaign monitors across different channels, but also with different propositions or different content types. Other use cases we saw were more on the testing and experimentation. So we'd like to do more test and control groups, more digital A/B testing. And if you go ahead and try to do some predictive modeling, you can also think about next best actions. So what should be the next thing that I do for this individual donor or this individual donor and channel combination? And we would like to automate journeys and flows. So these are use cases that we saw all across the different sections, and based on the maturity of a section, it starts with dashboarding and then it goes ahead with analysis and predictive modeling. So it depends on where you are right now and how fast you would like to go. Then the growth path and the data maturity for each section. Well, in general, we could say that most of the MSF teams were busy with either implementing or migrating a new CRM system. So that's an important cornerstone of your data strategy and also an important dependency of other stuff that you are going to do, because if your whole organization is working on a big CRM project, it's really hard to get the right resources and budget for other things. So a CRM implementation was an important topic for the current state of a lot of teams. What we also saw is that a lot of analysts had to do manual work because data was still in silos and of low quality. So specifically data preparation and data understanding took a lot of manual work of the analysts, which means that they could not take the next step and do more advanced analytics or data science, which is really a shame, because those analysts have a lot of knowledge and you don't want to lose them. So there's also a lot of churn in the data analyst community, because of course individually they also would like to make progress and learn new stuff. And if they stay in this manual work for data preparation, there's not much challenge, and that means that the analysts they lose interest in their jobs, and that's a high risk because they are so important for the fundraising teams. Another learning that we saw is that because it's a non-profit organization, and I can say that because I also work for a lot of profit organizations, non-profit organizations and people who work for those type of organizations, they are really committed in getting the job done. So they do a lot of things and they work extremely hard because they are so committed and engaged with the objectives of the organization that they don't give themselves time to think, to analyze, to evaluate and see how can we do stuff better tomorrow, because they want to make impact today. So the focus is on getting the job done, which means that there's less time available for analysis and learning and experimentation. And there's also limited integration between teams. So that's between data and analysis team and the fundraising team, but also, for instance, between IT and the data team. So there's not much of integration and collaboration between different teams and expertise areas. They all had similar desired states. So they would love to have a more integrated application landscape in which data can run freely between your CRM and your marketing automation or your analysis tool, or between the online environment and the CRM system. So application and data integration was an important part of the desired state, which means that data preparation, but also data integration, should be more automated than it is right now. Another important part of the desired state for MSF is that they would like to have a more multidisciplinary approach and process for the plan, do, check, and act. So instead of a fundraising manager does all the planning, and then in the next step, the data analyst is involved, they would like to do it more together. So you can use data and insights in all the steps of PDCA. And another part of the future state was that if we could find a solution that basic questions could be answered by fundraising specialists themselves in self-service BI or self-service analytics or in dashboards, it will free up a lot of time for analysts to do more advanced stuff instead of the manual work that they do right now. So self-service analytics is an important cornerstone to free up this time of these analysts to do the more advanced stuff. Which also means that there's more desire in clarity in roles and responsibility in terms of who does what and who's responsible for what. And that's also in my next slides. So what are solutions that MSF is included in their roadmaps? Power BI is an important tool. We see it all across the globe. You can also replace it with Click or other Tableau or other tooling, but building automated KPI dashboards in Power BI and also training people to work with Power BI is an important project all across the community. And building these dashboards not directly on the CRM system or on Excel files, but choose and implement a data warehouse solution was also high on the priority list for a lot of teams. You can imagine that a data warehouse will also replace a lot of the manual work that is done by the analyst right now. So choosing a solution that helps automating those kinds of processes is a high priority. And I already discussed the CRM system, which is often an IT-driven project, but integrating this new CRM system with marketing automation and your email marketing tool and your digital landscape to make really omni-channel donor journeys is the next step after this CRM implementation. So we also saw a lot of projects that are more on this integration of your IT landscape. Then we have the development of all these advanced analytics models and algorithms like lifetime value, segmentation, and you see that the different teams within MSF also collaborate on those topics already. And an important part, it is a project part, but it's also in the way you organize data strategy is they all wanted to allocate more time, but also find right ownership within the organization for the strategy itself. So it's nice that a fundraising analyst is starting this data strategy process, but somewhere on a management level, there should be ownership to really make sure that you find progress, but also allocate time and budget to actually do the projects on this roadmap. And sections that were a bit ahead of other sections were already also discussing stuff like data quality management, data governance, compliance, and more formalization of roles and responsibilities on that areas. So that's also something that we came across quite often. All right. Finally, where are the different sections are going to collaborate on? First, they decided that they would like to have the learning and development platform that we used for the process as a shared library for knowledge sharing, so they can have documentation there and also organize digital sessions. Shared training programs is something that they can easily collaborate on, for instance, on tooling. but also specialist exchange. So imagine that you have a really good data scientist in Stockholm that can help the Belgian team to develop a new churn model, and make the career of this data scientist more interesting, so that he stays within MSF, and also helps Belgium to do stuff that they can't do themselves, is a really nice result of this approach. Working together on IT projects, but also do peer reviews, so reviews of dashboard design or KPI definitions. And they would like to automate their internal KPI reporting across the different sections as well. So a lot of positive outcome of this process itself. The participants were really positive about it, and I would like to stress the last sentence of this feedback from one of the participants, and they said that because we did this process as a team, we have now a much more shared understanding and commitment of what it takes to get data driven. So yes, the result is important, but the process in doing this together as a team is so much more important than the result itself, because then you really have a deep understanding and commitment, instead of that you do it with just one or two people from your team and they present the results. So that's the most important feedback, is, in my opinion, the last sentence. Do this journey together, build your data strategy together, because when you do it together, it's much easier to understand what it takes and what is the let's say the list of projects that we need, and why is the list the way it is. So that's something that you can learn from MSF. So the next steps in what they are doing right now is that data strategy and the roadmap for each section is a default topic in the meetings of the fundraising community. So first they discussed a lot of projects and what they were doing with data, but now the strategy itself is a default topic in which they share experience and update on progress. The data strategy project also led to deep dives with specific sections on specific topics. So how should I change my organization, or what should my data architecture be? What is the best CRM system for my specific situation? So we did a lot of deep dives coming from this data strategy, and MSF is reusing the framework and also the self-assessment to share progress and update the roadmaps, to also see the progress of the different sections. So they keep using the framework to update each other on progress. So that's my learnings. A lot of learnings, and please review the recordings to see what of these learnings might be relevant for you and your own situation. And if you'd like, I can help you right now when you have questions about your situation or specific parts of my presentation. So feel free to ask any question that you would like. Everyone is asleep.
Thank you so much, Stijn. Does anyone have any questions for Stijn? Yeah, Dick, go ahead.
Thanks a lot for this very clear and interesting presentation. So I've a question about the following. So in fact, what I do myself is, let's say, advanced analytics projects. Mm-hmm. And my question is, in fact, Yeah, I do that. Maybe without looking at, let us say, the data strategy of the company, of the non-profit organization. So how important is it to first have a good data strategy before you do more advanced analytics use cases?
I think it's always a good idea that if you do a project, that you just continue the project, because somehow the project originated from somewhere. So there was an idea that led to your advanced analytics project. So at the start of the project, you could ask, why did you choose to do this project and not another one? So what was the thought process that you as a stakeholder or as a client or as a manager go through to define, we do this instead of that? That gives you insights in whether they have a data and analytics strategy or not. Because the answer could be, yeah, we decided because we have a long list of use cases and we prioritize them, and this is the use case with the highest priority because it matches our organizational objectives the most. Then you know, okay, that part of the data strategy is already in place. The other part of the data strategy is about what happens after the project. So are you as an organization equipped to actually use and reuse the result of the project in the future? Because if you're not, you run the risk that it's a one-off project and that people are really enthusiastic, and then when the project is done, it's over and it's not creating value anymore. So during or at the beginning of your project, you could also discuss what's next, what's afterwards. Are you equipped to do it, to continue the project with your own people, or to automate the result, or to implement the result in your operational processes? And the answer to those questions also gives you a good insight in, is there a data strategy and what is the data maturity of the organization? So please, please, please continue the projects, but also always think about what's before and what's after the project. Because that really gives you insights in whether an organization has thought about data strategy in a more holistic way.
Thanks, very clear. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? I couldn't find the button to raise my hand.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, to continue on the questions that Dick asked, I was wondering what is, I think, the bare minimum for a data strategy to start cooperating with, for example, an NGO. I work on the same projects that Dick, the same type of projects that Dick works on. And sometimes you get data sets and you just very much doubt if they are proper enough to actually use. So I was wondering, like, what kind of basic tests can you do to check if the data strategy is equipped enough to do? Do you understand my question?
Yes. I think that running a specific analytics project will give you a lot of hooks or discussion points with your client or with the organization that you work with, to make some kind of self-assessment about data maturity and whether or not an organization is structurally thinking about improving the data maturity. Which means that when you see that the data quality of a data set that you're working with is limited, or the people that you work with are less skilled than you think they should be, those are all discussion starters to say, have you thought about improving those elements of your organization to make the most out of the data that you get. Not to stop your own project or stop your own analysis or to slow down your own progress, but to advise the organization you work with by saying, okay, if you really want to take the next step, you also have to think about stuff like data quality or knowledge or competence or IT, stuff like that. Is there a bare minimum? I don't think so, because even a small step forward is a step forward.
Yeah. So in that sense, just work with the NGO and kind of leverage the experience you have to also help them develop their data.
Exactly, and share your observations with your client or with the organization you work with, and say, these are observations in not in my project, but they are related to my project, and I would suggest and I would advise you also to think more structurally about those kinds of topics, because if you don't, the projects that we are doing are either unsuccessful or expensive or too long. So it helps also to improve the results of your projects if an organization thinks structurally about those kinds of elements as well.
Okay, it's a clear answer.
So you're an important observer and also an important consultant for your clients on topics that you don't really think are important, but they are. Data quality and those kinds of stuff.
Okay, very clear. Thank you.
All right. I think we have time for one last question. Yes, Bach.
Oh, too late. Bach.
Sorry, you can go ahead. Sorry about that.
You sure?
Yeah, because I
Okay,
have
well,
a question kind of unrelated to the presentation.
Okay, I'll go first. So well, thanks Stijn for the lovely presentation. I think very, very interesting. So you mentioned that you work both in the for-profit world and in the non-profit world. So I would be interested to hear, do you see differences in those two domains with regards to maturity? And maybe also so we saw a lot about MSF in your presentation. Do you maybe have experience also with other non-profits or NGOs, and what are maybe common challenges that they encounter in this maturity field?
Yeah, so comparing profit with non-profit organizations, an important difference is the motivation and the drive of the people who work for the organization, and therefore also the motivation and drive to do more with data. So in profit organizations, it's more directly related to financial results, conversion, customer value. Those kinds of topics are more part of the culture and the values of the organization than for non-profit organizations. For non-profit organizations, that doesn't mean that data is less a topic. It's different, and it's different in terms of the adoption of data and of data analysis. And as I said, the drive and the passion that people intrinsically have who work for non-profit organizations is much higher than for people who work for profit organizations, which means that it's harder to change their behavior, because the behavior of fundraising specialists is more intrinsically motivated and therefore harder to change than people who work for other types of organizations. So that's on the change management side. And for a lot of organizations in non-profit, specifically when they are related to health, and patient oriented organizations like lung funds or Alzheimer or Parkinson or Hersenstichting. So a lot of health related organizations, they also have more complexity in terms of their data position and what you can and can't do with the data of your relations. So that's also an important part of other types of organizations in MSF that I work with. So, but in general, it's a cultural thing. It's a motivational thing. It's an intrinsic motivation thing, and that's also really important to maintain in the way that data is used. So you don't want to change that part because it's awesome that people want to work for these types of organizations.
So, but so if you would convince them or get them on the mindset this data and the analytics contributes to their intrinsic motivation, then you don't need to put maybe many effort in the change management. Then it really goes as a how do you say that, vliegwiel?
Yeah, exactly. But
yeah.
the problem is that a lot of the motivational part of people who work for NGOs is making impact, and making impact is harder to measure directly and on a day-to-day or on a week-to-week basis than when you are working for a commercial organization that would like to sell more products.
Yeah.
So it's a more direct relationship between activities and results. And for NGOs, it's more on impact, which is harder to measure on the short term. So that's a more of a challenge.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. Thanks.
All right. Well, I think we're out of time. I want to say thank you so much, Stijn, for your presentation today and for everyone who joined us. And the recording will be available online after the session. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.